Why are we still so haunted by the Wild West? Is it just the dusty shootouts, the lone cowboys riding into the sunset, or the gritty tales of outlaws and lawmen? We've seen 1,000 movies, read 100 books, and yet, the myth of the American frontier still holds a grip on our imagination. We talk about it as a past, as a finished chapter in our history. But what if it's not? What if the Wild West isn't just a place we left behind, but a part of us we carry forward? The truth is, the West wasn't just a time or a place. It was a crucible, a testing ground where the American identity was forged in fire. It was where people went to escape who they were and discover who they could become. It was a canvas painted with blood and hope, a story of three kinds of people who defined an era. There was the soldier, the men who came home from the Civil War with the ghosts of the battlefield still whispering in their ears. Men like Josiah, a veteran searching for a new life, but unable to outrun the demons of his past. He went west not for a dream, but to find a silence that would drown out the screams. His was a story of a nation trying to reconcile with its own violent heart. Then there was the settler, the pioneers who packed everything they owned into a wagon and looked to the horizon with a quiet, fierce optimism. People like the Hanson family, a mother, father, and young daughter, who faced a land so vast and unforgiving it threatened to break them. Their struggle was one of resilience, of a deep-rooted belief that hardship was the price of a better life. Their story is the promise of America itself. And finally, there was the outlaw, the ones cast out by a society that had no place for them, the ones who looked at the law and saw only a tool of the powerful. Like Ilara, a young woman who had to build her own kind of justice out of desperation and betrayal. Her story is a shadow on the great American dream, a reminder that the line between right and wrong was often as blurry as the heat haze on a summer desert. These three stories, running parallel and intersecting, are not just about history. They are about the burdens we carry, the promises we make, and the justice we fight for. They are the true spirit of the West, and they are why, to this day, it still haunts America. Because in their struggles, we see our own. Josiah came west not for land or gold, but for quiet. The Civil War had left him hollowed out, a ghost in his own skin. He rode for weeks, the vast, empty plains a mirror to the emptiness inside him. Every gust of wind was a battlefield roar, every distant thunder a memory of cannon fire. He was a man made for violence, trying to find peace in a place that didn't know the meaning of the word. He thought the silence of the desert would drown out the screams, but it only made them echo louder. One blistering afternoon, Josiah crested a hill and saw a small wagon broken down by the side of the trail. A family was huddled there, a man, a woman, and a girl no older than 10. They were surrounded by a small group of riders, their faces hidden by bandanas. The men were arguing, their voices thick with greed. The father, a burly man with a kind face, stood firm, protecting his family. But there were too many of them. For a brief, agonizing moment, Josiah was a soldier again, seeing a choice between action and inaction, life and death. His blood ran cold with the old, familiar terror, but a different kind of fear rose in his throat, the fear of standing by and doing nothing. He raised his rifle, not to kill, but to warn. A single, sharp shot split the air, sending a bullet kicking up dust inches from the feet of the closest rider. The men, surprised, scattered and rode off into the brush. Josiah had found no peace, but for the first time in years, he had found purpose. The Hanson family had a different kind of burden. They were not escaping but building. They came to the West with the unshakable belief in a new beginning. Mr. Hansen, a farmer by trade, saw not a barren wasteland, but a future of golden wheat fields. His wife, a woman of unyielding strength, saw a home, a community built from nothing. And their daughter, wide-eyed and full of wonder, saw a world of endless possibility. Their journey was a relentless series of small, grinding battles. The relentless sun cracked their lips and peeled their skin. A sudden, violent storm tore at their wagon, a struggle against the raw power of nature. When their youngest fell ill with a fever, their hope was tested more than ever before. But they persevered. They fixed the wagon with salvaged wood, found shelter in a cave during the storm, and nursed their child back to health with makeshift remedies. Their story wasn't about heroism in battle, but about the quiet, determined courage of survival. It was a testament to the settlers' promise, the belief that with enough grit and optimism, anything could be built from the dust. But the West was not a blank slate. It was a place where old wounds festered. For every settler chasing a dream, there was someone else whose dream had been stolen. Like Ilara. She was not born an outlaw. She was made one. Framed for a crime she didn't commit by a corrupt land baron, she was cast out, left to fend for herself in a world that had no use for her. She didn't seek to hide. She sought justice. She gathered other outcasts, those wronged by the same system, and formed a gang unlike any other. They didn't rob banks. They robbed the supply trains of the powerful corporations that exploited the land and the people. They didn't kill for sport. They hunted down corrupt lawmen and powerful men who believed themselves to be above the law. Her brand of justice was a brutal one, a necessary response to a world that had forgotten its conscience. The three stories, each a single thread, began to weave together. After Josiah helped the Hansen family, he felt a pull he hadn't felt in years. He saw in their struggle a reflection of the hope he had lost. He knew he had to find a way to help them, and in doing so, perhaps help himself. He followed the trail of the men who had threatened them, a trail that led him straight into an ambush. He found himself surrounded, not by a pack of vicious bandits, but by Ilara's gang. He was a soldier. She was an outlaw. The moment they faced each other, the air crackled with a tension that was not born of violence, but of ideology. Ilara stepped forward, her eyes as cold and sharp as his own. "You're a long way from the battlefield, soldier," she said, her voice a low murmur. "Still fighting a war that's long over?" Josiah looked from her to his own rifle. "I'm fighting a different kind of war. A war against men like those who ran from here." Ilara laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "They're just dogs on a chain. Their masters are the ones with the real power. The men in suits, the men with badges who will say you're wrong for what you did, even though it was right. You believe in a justice that doesn't exist, a law that only protects the rich and the powerful. We had to make our own." The truth in her words was a gut punch. Josiah had been living his life by a code that had been proven meaningless. He had sought peace by running from his past, only to find that his past was the one thing that could give him purpose. He saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had burned in his own heart when he was a young man fighting for what he believed was right. Josiah lowered his rifle, the cold steel feeling heavier than ever before. "I've been running from this my whole life," he said, his voice a raw whisper. "I've been trying to find peace in a world where it doesn't exist. Maybe you're right. Maybe the law is just a gun in the hand of the powerful. Maybe it's time someone else held the gun." He looked at Ilara not as an outlaw, but as an ally. The lines between hero and villain, between order and chaos, blurred into a single, complex truth. It was a moment of profound change, the soldier finally letting go of the past and embracing a new future. With Josiah's tactical mind and Alara's fierce determination, their small band of outcasts became a force for justice. They didn't just fight. They outsmarted the oppressors, dismantling their network of power and exposing the truth of their corruption. The fight wasn't easy, but they had found a common purpose, a shared fight for something bigger than themselves. Josiah had finally stopped running, using his old skills not to cause destruction, but to build a foundation for a new kind of justice. They had won. The corrupt were brought down, and a fragile sense of peace settled over the land. The Hanson family, who had found their own quiet victory against a land that seemed determined to swallow them whole, now saw their hard work finally bear fruit. The land, once unforgiving, had yielded to their persistence. Their wheat fields, swaying in the wind, were a testament to their faith. Their story wasn't of grand battles, but of quiet endurance. It proved that the American dream, that promise of prosperity and a new life, wasn't a guarantee. It was something you had to earn every single day. And this is the ultimate truth of the West. It wasn't a place of simple heroes and villains, but a complex mosaic of ordinary people trying to survive. It was the haunted soldier, the hopeful settler, and the righteous outlaw. Their stories, running parallel and colliding, are the foundational myths of a nation. They weren't legends from a book. They were a man struggling to find peace, a family struggling to build a home, and a woman struggling to find justice when the law had failed her. They are the burdens we carry, the promises we make, the justice we fight for. This is why the Wild West still haunts us. Because it's not a dusty, forgotten chapter of history. It's the raw, unvarnished story of our identity. It's a mirror reflecting our resilience, our self-reliance, and our eternal fight for a better future. The West lives on, not in the old towns or the faded photographs, but in our hearts. It is the echo of our past, a constant reminder of who we are and what we can be.